Hey guys, and welcome to another perfectly executed ComicBase live stream opening. All right, so I got my glasses on here because I'm going to need to see a bunch of stuff to get this queued up. Hopefully people can hear me okay. I'm hiding windows desperately as I go here. Yes, I'd like to stop debugging. All right, so anyway, hi, this is going to be an interesting one. Excuse the beeping from my computer. We're going to be talking a bit about what we presented and wanted to present and whatnot at Comic-Con, making some critical announcements that I've been promising people that I would tell people once we had Comic-Con what was going on. But I'm probably going to save the big monster rollout. That's probably going to be another day. So if you're expecting a big polished presentation, this is not this live stream. This is more like what I did on my summer vacation, and it was very weird. So anyway, before we get going, and because I also need to stall for a minute while I queue up a few things here, I want to say hi to folks. Very much thank you, Jet City Comics. He says never been to SDCC. That's fine with me. Understand. It's an amazing thing. There's nothing like it. But I have also after 32 years of doing it, I can say I sympathize with the people who say, yeah, I'm getting too old for this, because it's a lot. Anyway, Oravia, who joining us from beautiful Minneapolis, Mike Beam from the Pacific Northwest, our Ahmad Greg Hecht is in the house. Everyone, behave yourselves. Rob Weinberg from sweltering Toledo. Yeah, it's hot as Hades out here in Franklin, just outside Nashville. Here, it's feels like 105 was the last thing I saw as I was taking my dog out for a walk, and he was not a happy guy. Tyler T from Albany, New York, also hot and sunny. Chris Prisol from Philadelphia. Department in the Comics in the house. Everyone's sweating in the house here, and this is based on Pete's photo. Comic Sans Comic Con is the last stand for Comic Sans fun. Comic Sans never going down, guys. Don't ever believe it. So let's see here. Questions about the Fantastic Four. I have not. I was thinking of seeing it during the show, and I realized, wait a minute, I'd love to take my wife with me. I should do this, another time. And so I did not. Anyway, so let me start off by doing something unusual. So we tried very hard to set up a camera and capture the Comic-Con panel. And I actually managed to save some video, but I'm going to play that. It's shorter than you would think from the show, but I think this will come across if I can just get this queued up and closing windows. Good God, how many windows do I have open? Okay, and let's see if I can get this going. So that's StreamYard, and I need. Yeah, thanks for that. Whatever beeped. Okay, and let's see if I can get the media switcher coming up here, because unfortunately, in order to play the intro stuff, I had to do the switcher stuff to be someplace else. So let me see if I can cue that up, and if so, we will take it from there. So give me just a moment to get to the right place. Not audio, not camera. I want to go to media. There we go, Hyperdeck. And I want to play Pete at SDCC. All right, I think that's all queued up. Let's let this roll and see. I'll see you guys in about 5 minutes if this works. And if you guys have trouble with the audio, somebody, I don't know, yell in the chat. I think we didn't have a chance to check the audio on this one, but there is audio on the track, so I'm hoping to God it comes across. All right, so let's let this roll. Number 5. Nope, that's wrong one. Nope. There you go. That's me. All right, here we go. All right, hey guys, thanks for coming out. You guys found it all the way out here from from the Marina Marriott Ballroom, whatever the heck. Got past the maze and everything else, and this is amazing. Thank you for making it. As you guys probably know, I'm Pete Bickford. I am. Oops, hold on a second. Sorry, hang on a second. I scrolled. Sorry. Hold on. Give me a second. I need to unscroll that because I don't want to spoil the surprise. So I'll admit, I can put this here while I fun. So
I actually, you wouldn't know it from the live stream, but I actually try to be, prepared for stuff. It doesn't, always work, but I do try. And usually the problem with the live stream is that I'm coming in, like I've been working on some horrific thing or answering a customer call or doing something like that, right up until about 2 seconds before the stream hits. And so, it's always a little amazing to me when, the video signal works, or or for instance, that I have actually turned on the sound, because I've done entire shows with no sound, as you guys know, which sucks. We have to have a really good discussion, and you have to repeat it all again because all they're seeing is having your lips read, which I'm sure is awesome if you're deaf, but does nothing for anybody else. Anyway, so I went out and I did pre-scout last night to try to find out what's possible with the venue, and I figured out pretty quickly that I have no chance of showing, a lot of things I want to show on the screen. This isn't quite the Hall H experience here, but most importantly, I can't show things that are on this there. And so I thought I need to have a rethink. And so I walked back and did the sensible thing. I went straight to bed. And about 2 a.m, I had an idea. So I woke up and I thought, okay, the room is set up as if we're all going to sit here. Before you guys came out here, actually all the chairs were facing inward at little table groups, like we're going to do a craft project or maybe do some tabletop gaming. And so I came out here before any of the union guys could object. I shouldn't probably be saying this on camera. Anyway, so chairs were rearranged somewhat, so it's a little better than it was. But I still thought, well, okay, it's meant to be more of a talking and a presentation-y thing, less of a let's play card games together or something. But I thought gaming. Hey, I know. It's been a while since I've DM'd, a lot of years. And so I thought, well, how about we work with this? Because clearly the presentation I wanted to give isn't going to come off, and I feel a little meta. And so I thought, well, what I'll do instead is, how about if I get up at 2 a.m. and write a text-based adventure game? So, so that's what I did. And it goes something like this, if the thing will come on. And if I want to, I'll just talk to it. Okay, syncing my screen. And hey, there we go. All right, so yes, it's the Comic-Con 2025 Choose Your Own Adventure panel. You've never been to one of these before, welcome, this is the first one. You're in a somewhat drab ballroom at the Marriott Grand Marquis at the beginning of the first full day of Comic-Con. Before you stands Peter Bickford, creator of ComicBase and wannabe supervillain. He looks a little haggard from lack of sleep. Bickford has just made some lame comments about feeling very meta today, and since he has decided not to go with his prepared talk, has come up with about 3 hours worth of stuff that he could gas on about, and only has about approximately 54 minutes left. I'll let you guys choose the topics as long as we have time, he says. You might just be feeling a little bit cruel. Should he? And I'm going to let you guys decide. This is a real thing we're doing here. All right. Number 1. Number A, undercut all personal credibility by describing how he was profoundly wrong about 3 of the biggest trends shaping the world of comics, to be followed immediately and shamelessly by the very good reasons why you should definitely want to purchase the next version of ComicBase. That's choice A. Choice B. Remembering that he promised to film and broadcast this, and multiple cameras are likely running right now, get himself canceled by jumping directly onto a hot button cultural war topic, then promptly mixing in the R word just for fun. C, unveil the real truth behind that secret society he's been involved with. D, just answer questions from the audience, like when are we going to see the Mac version? Or E, sod it all for a game of soldiers and head straight over to the field and so he can pay up on all those beers he owes. All right, so and as you guys probably remember, I said, look, if you're on the ComicBase top 200 leaderboard and you hit me up at Comic-Con, I will buy you a beer, and I absolutely mean this. So, by the way, by show of hands, how many people are on the top 200 ComicBase leaderboard, just so I know what the drink damages could be? Oh, no way. All right, so we'll rock out. All right, so by show of hands, A, undercut my credibility, then try to sell you ComicBase. B, we'll just review the choice.
And we're back. So you might be asking yourself, why did the video stop just right there? It seemed like it was going along reasonably well. Um, and as it turns out, let's just have one look back at that last frame of video there. I think it's input 6. Note that as I'm counting off the suggestions, for who wants to vote for A, B, etc. And now let's look at the user manual for the Ozbot tail remote camera. And you'll notice there's some gesture controls. One of them looks suspiciously like start/stop recording. And yeah, that happened. So best laid plans, guys. Yeah, apparently if I count like 1, 2, that apparently is close enough to stop recording that it just turned the whole damn thing off. And because it was the first time in the field I've been using the camera, I had no freaking clue at all. Anyway, so that's about it. I do have the actual choose your own adventure game that I did write up that night in a sleepless bit of fury on the whole thing. But the only presentation that I wrote ahead of time on that one is if people had actually gone in and chose E, which was sod all that for a game of soldiers and pay up on those beers you owe us, Bickford. I would be, the answer was, ha! Joke's on you, you lushes. The field isn't open until 11 a.m. So go back and choose something else. But anyway, the one that everyone chose was number 1, which was tell us the 3 things that you completely screwed up over the last year. It followed shamelessly by the reasons that we should all be buying ComicBase out, anyway. And so that led into a long discussion. Some things where, if you're used to the live stream, should be, relatively familiar topics. But I'll go over them briefly. The 3 big things that we messed up over the last year in terms of, or really just in time, over the comics market, which were huge, and this was a complete miss on our part. Number 1, the effect of slabbing. When we looked at this back in 1992, CGC was just entering the market. I remember Maggie Thompson, us having a discussion and her saying, "Man, this thing's going to hit the industry like a ton of bricks. It will not know it hit it," and that was true. And we dealt with it, I think on one hand well, and the other hand really badly. The part we did well is with Comics Buyer's Guide, we did a big survey of all the different slabbed grades that were coming in, and we're able to compare them to the unslabbed grades on eBay and work out kind of a table for, if something came in with a CGC 9.4, that on average it would sell for 400% of what the unslabbed near mint copy would be, and so forth. And we were able to kind of come up with a list of the grades so that people could kind of guess where the books might fall out. That's the part we got right. The part we got profoundly wrong, which we just didn't see coming because it happened slowly enough, was slabbing converted the market on the high end. So slabbing your comic books, it's on one hand, it is a way to take just a generic comic book, a Dazzler number 1 or whatever variant thingy that just came out this week, and if you can get that thing slabbed and get it to come up with a 9.8 grade, you'll be printing a certain amount of money. I mean, there's money built into the system at high grades, where the market will pay you a certain amount over your slabbing cost, which is what everyone's figuring. And you're you're essentially manufacturing a new collectible whose raw material was that comic book, and that part we were doing an okay job of guesstimating in. The part we did miserably on is we did not realize after a while that unless you slabbed your comics, that you couldn't sell a high-end comic book. So in other words, if you had a comic book whose out of the box, just its unslabbed value was worth, say, $100 or $250, it's actually those are rarer and rarer to find not already in a slab. And if you did want to sell them in many markets, including anywhere on the internet, basically you had to get it slabbed, or you couldn't transact the business. And so what happened there is those books, when slabbed, that would still give a certain amount of premium over the unslabbed versions when they'd sell, but nothing like the amount that low-end books would go. So we kind of bit the bullet on this one last year when we did ComicBase 2025, and we introduced a brand new grading system, which has not just one breakdown price, saying like, okay, CGC 9.4 is worth 400% of near mint and so forth. We just say, well, okay, that's what it is for low end books, anything under $100. And then we have a second percentage breakdowns for mid grade books, $100 to $250. And then we have a third one for high end books, $250 and over. And what you find out is especially as you get to the high end books, they're in very nice grades. The effect of our old system before we had multiple breakdowns was to dramatically overstate the value of your collection. So if you had a legitimately nice set of books in your collection, and you had gotten them slabbed and they came up in good grades before ComicBase 2025, we were telling you that they're worth too much money. Whereas when we introduced ComicBase 2025's multi grading scale system, we got a lot closer to the realized prices for all those books. And that's the good news, because we could look at what when we process auction results and things like that, we could look at how much a book was expected to get by our grading scale and how much it did get. And now we get books that come in sometimes that are like, they match to the penny sometimes, but much, much closer to the real market values. That's the good news. The bad news is we took a real, we shocked a lot of people, where if you had a ton of really good books in your collection and you'd gotten them slabbed, people would, download ComicBase 2025, and it didn't matter how many times we talked about it ahead of time. But we'd get calls on the tech support line saying, hey, I upgraded the new version and I lost 40% of my collection value. And then we'd have to go through the discussion, what we just did. Now, we made it a little better over time. We have more explicit messaging saying, hey, this has new grading and it's going to affect your values, maybe, depending on whether you've got slabbed books and stuff. So that's good. But yeah, we took way too long to come around to realizing, where the market was at and what had happened with that one. So I'm glad we adjusted, but it took way the hell too long. Number two of things that we blew in the comic market, variants. Going back to ComicBase 1.0, we had the ability to have variants. And in those halcyon days of 1990, 1992, they were all very nice descriptive variants. So a ComicBase issue number, took the form of something like, the comic type, could be like a regular book, or it could be like annual or special or deluxe edition or, collected, set or collector's set or whatever else. So it'd have like, an abbreviation if necessary for that, followed by an issue number, followed by, and by the way, we're smart enough to make the issue number a decimal, because by then half issues had started showing up, to be followed later on by -1 issues and pi issues, and God help us, all the others. But anyway, but then we also had the idea of a variant code. And, so if I had the silver version of Youngblood #1, which you could get if you went and attended the image panel back in 1992, you actually walked out of that panel, I believe, with the gold, cover, gold foil one as your special thank you gift for going to the panel. And then there was another one from Nighthawk where you could get the silver, one and so forth. And, and then all the Valiant books came out with all different things like that. Those were great. And we gave them nice descriptive names, with the exception of one comic book out of the whole thing, where we had we had the idea of collector's set. This is the one that you could buy, like the variant of, say, Spider-Man #1 that had you could have the one that was just the straight one off the stands, or you could get the one that was polybagged. It had the extra poster and card and things like that. And then we had one really weird abbreviation in those days which stood out because it was really weird. It was CG. It was Collector's Set Green, and it was there specifically for Spider-Man #1 from Todd McFarlane in 1992, I believe, because they'd done two different collector sets. There was like kind of a black one, there was kind of a green one, and so we had to have the ability to designate between the two of them. And wow, my phone's just blowing up. I don't know what's going on, and it's going to have to wait because I'm on damn Lime Street. So anyway, so sorry, I'm just going to shut this off. Anyway, so things, as we all know, got weirder from there. I mean, there were nude editions, and there were gold foil nude editions, and at some point, very quickly after 1992, we figured out, yeah, okay, we give up. We're just going to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G at this point, all the way through Z, and then sometime later after that, they got crazy and made variants that had more than Z, more than 26 variations. And then so we're like, what do we do about that? For a while, we abused the printing field when they did that Godzilla #1 that all the comic stores could get their destroyed by Godzilla. We said, okay, yeah, it's the publisher variant, and then it's -152 will be the one where Newbury Comics gets destroyed by the thing. But after like a dozen of these sorts of issues had come out by the mid 90s, we realized that we couldn't do this anymore. And I think actually by the mid aughts was when that happened. But eventually we came up with another system where we say, okay, fine, for everything after number 26, it's just going to be V27, V28, V29, V20, all the way through V infinity if we have to. And so we finally dealt with that, and we pat ourselves on the back. Hey, good us. Job well done. We've really handled that well. But we just really were not ready for a world where we're at today is 92% of all comic books. And I think, I haven't looked at this month's figures yet, but depending on the month, 93% of all comics issued in the world are a variant. I mean, the overwhelming number of comic books that come out these days don't actually have a non-variant cover. So there is no regular cover anymore. And we didn't do enough to kind of cope with that early on. One of the things that we did later on is we, in addition to having the infinite variant numbering type deal, is we added an item description field which we control, which we can actually now act as like the official word of that the C variant is the one that has this guy's cover and it's whatever else, and we can describe it in a way that it doesn't just get jumbled into your notes like it used to be in the old days. So we eventually got to the point where we can designate that. But the thing that really hurts in a world where all the comics are variants and you can't see it without, is because we're all using the archive edition in-house, and all of our upper end customers are all using the archive edition. We got a little cavalier about picture reference, because we have thousands of new pictures that come out every week that show you, hey, here's all the new covers, here's all the new things. But if you were using the Express or the Pro editions of things like that, what we were doing for those guys is typically we would just give you the number ones. We figured that would help you find the series, kind of like the Overstreet Price Guide, and you'd find the rest from there. And that was nowhere near enough. And so I had a call, you guys might remember, sometime around Thanksgiving of last year, where a guy called up. I was covering the phones for for some reason, and a guy called up and said, hey, I'm using your free version and I'm trying to figure out if this ain't good, and I want to just find a couple comic books, so I'm trying to find my copy of Spider-Man #1. Yeah, there we are, 1992 again. And I thought, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. I know exactly what he's talking about, but oh yeah, this is the one with the collector set green and the collector set black. Okay, I know where this guy's going. But for the first time in 10 years, I actually opened up Spider-Man #1, and I realized they don't have 5 different editions of Spider-Man #1 anymore. No, now they got like about 25, because they've gone back to print many, many times over the years. And so it has, reprinted this type of thing, cover this thing, it got, used on action figures, got used in, various other types of things. And so even with what I thought was like, this is a slam dunk, I've got this nailed. Oh, this is the odd case. It's just, that's that one that people would have trouble finding. I realized this guy's hosed. I mean, we'd have to work so hard to find out which was your right cover off this one, because this was also pre-barcode days. You couldn't just beep the book in and find out. And so it's like, oh yeah, our free version is way less of a good product than I thought it was for people who collect in that era. I mean, if you're still collecting 1970s Marvels or DCs, it's great product. But for anyone collecting modern comic books, it's just not getting the job done anymore. And took a long walk with my dog and thought about it for a bit, talked to some people, talked to the team, and we eventually came up with we got to change up our product line in kind of a big way here, because you can't do collecting in 2024, 2025 without photo reference for damn near everything. And so what we did is we decided it's not going to be just the archive people who get the picture reference. We're going to give at least thumbnails to, we'll give hundreds of thousands of them to pretty much everybody. I mean, we're starting out with the free guys. We're going to bundle in, basically, thumbnail reference for, everything from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, and I think there might be one or two others in there. And then when you go to the Express, we're going to add in, the Valiants and the Titans and the IDWs and the Booms and things like that. And we get to Pro, we're going to add in, more of the fancier titles, like the Archies, by fancier, I meant not fancier, but the Archies, the Gold Keys, the Dells, the Fawcett's, the fiction houses, and so forth, and then of course, if you want all 1.1 million comic books that we've now got in the database, well, then there's still the archive, and the archive also gives you them full size. But at least if we give you the thumbnail, the 256 pixel tall version of it, that's at least enough for you to have a fighting chance of identifying the damn comic book. And we had to make that part of everything right the way down to the demo program, the ComicBase free. And that was something it took us a long time to realize was, oh yeah, the world has really changed in a big way here, in a way that really just makes it unsupportable to do modern comic book collecting without having some kind of photo reference, and also being much more diligent about how we designate variants. So that was a big miss on our part, but we did a big correct on it last year, and that's why when we're ComicBase, you're still on the ComicBase 2025 cycle right now, you might notice there have been a lot of big number releases that follow after that one, and that was when I believe that was 25.5 is when we introduced the Professional Plus and Express Plus editions, where we just threw all that stuff in there. And by the way, for the sake of accuracy, when we say yeah, it's the free has over 100,000, the Express is over 200,000, the Pro is over 300,000. That is not the most accurate numbers in the world, because the real number is about 100,000 higher than that. It sounds nice to say 1, 2, 3, as opposed to, yeah, the free has 187,000 pictures in it, which is, I think, the accurate count on that one. Yeah, it's just, you need to have the reference. It has to be done. And then let's see here. And Ed, we're going to get to them, because the third thing that I talked about that was a big miss for us was the mobile app. So and that's the thing that I was so desperate to show. Here, let me whip out a phone which isn't tethered to something right now. So yes, and here it's reminding me I have the ComicBase live stream on. I better get to it. Yes, dismiss. So yeah, it's funny because you can probably tell we're kind of geeks, right? I mean, I've got 17 devices on my desk here. I'm wired up down sideways with fiber optic cable going to the overhead cameras and all the other stuff, right now. We were not shy about embracing new technology. Matter of fact, we were so not shy about embracing new technology when we started doing ComicBase that, when iPads came along and you started having multiple, form factors for your for your web devices and things like that, we were right on top of all that stuff, and we embraced a standard of design for what we figured we'd do when the web became like a big thing in our world around ComicBase 10 is like, okay, great, we're going to write this to open standards using HTML and these CSS, cascading style sheets and stuff like that. We'll embrace the hot new standards, CSS 2.0. And we were going to make it so that, you could make reports that could be not only just saved to your devices, no matter where they were, but they would render on anything. And you could get more or less data based on whether you showed it this way or that way and so forth. You could use all the great, HTML-y goodness of the whole thing. And we had we thought, from our kind of like IT-ish perspective, kind of like a really slick solution for all this, web reporting, take your stuff on the go stuff. And that was good to a point, and you can see where the butt's coming in. So what happened, and when we, is people kept on saying, well, hey, but yeah, we still want an app, like a real app, not just a progressive web app. This is what they wound up calling these things, PWA apps, if you guys ever work in tech. No, we want like an actual, like I go to the app store and I do the thing and I scan the thing. And one of the things that was like this, the gimmick of the day that was driving a lot of this, was the idea was I want to be able to use my phone like a barcode scanner and basically just take a shot of the comic book, have it pop up there and go from there. And we actually had a guy do absolutely brave work trying to, using JavaScript and again all these open web standards, for a PWA app, of allowing it to do image recognition on a barcode that you would take a shot of back in the day. This is back in, I don't know, maybe 2010. and try to recognize it. And it probably hit 60% of the time. It was thunky as hell, but we thought, well, that's actually, given what we got to work with, we thought that wasn't too bad. But a number of things happened over the years that told us that we're not really doing what we ought to be doing. So one of them was, we had the ability after a while to have to have reports saved up to the web. So, I would go to comic shows and I would go looking for things, and then I would realize, oh, damn, I forgot to upload my report to the web before I left. And so I'd go to the show and I can't remember whether this book that I'm seeing over there was one of the books that I just put in. So we had this feature to ComicBase Sidekick, which is a little utility app that comes with ComicBase, to allow it to automatically make web reports so that you'll never forget again. It'll always keep your stuff updated on your phone so that, wherever your phone is on there, you don't need to remember to save the stuff up to the web. It's like, okay, that's pretty good, right? And we went on further from this whole thing. We eventually did a barcode app, an actual proper app. We paid a company, because you might realize that we've got a lot of stuff on our plates here. We're managing, the tech stack and infrastructure like you cannot believe on the whole thing. We're doing it with a very small staff. But when it came down to like hey, would you like to learn how to program in both Java and whatever toolkit iOS is using these days, and write a cross-platform app on that stuff as well? We were like, oh, dear God in heaven, no, please. It's like, this is just too much for our brains. And so a technology called Xamarin came out, which was a cross-platform solution that was originally independent and eventually got bought up by Microsoft. And that was like kind of like the answer to our dreams. We're like, okay, fine, we can actually write a proper app. After all this time, that we write it once and then it'll run on both iOS and Android. And so we thought, okay, that's pretty good. And okay, so downside, do I just know how to write Xamarin apps? And I kind of went to school on this one a bit and realized, yeah, I don't have the time to learn this right now. So we hired it out. It seemed like a rational enough choice. We spec'd out, okay, so fine. You fire up the app and it'll call these web services. It'll pull up, which databases the guy's got. It'll allow him to, look up different things, look at his reports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we should, you should be able to do your thing, and then we can actually launch it through the App Store, and good to go, we figured. And we even, found a way to make it so it could, interface with the camera and do an actual barcode recognition at long last. At this point, it's probably about 3 years after that feature would have been cool. So we did this, and I thought, okay, yeah, again, problem solved, right? Done. And then I'm, driving down to Florida one day, and you guys probably heard the story about how I'm in Ollie's Discount Bargain Warehouse. I mean, all the great improvements in ComicBase always come when I'm trying to shop for comic books, right? And this is something where, I might have been thinking it a number of times over the years, as I heard this complaint, but I never said it out loud. Every once in a while, we get people saying like, "Hey, yeah, my phone is having trouble loading up the reports, and so I can't really get to my list of what I've got." And I'm kind of sitting there thinking like yeah, I spend a fair amount of money on technology every year. I mean, like, I don't know what kind of bargain basement founded on the street free phone did you have here, man? Get a less crappy phone. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying it because I'm not a jerk, but I'm thinking it. And so that's okay as might be. But anyway, one day I'm driving down to Florida, and I happen to discover Ollie's Discount Bargain Warehouse. If you guys ever been to one of these, they're kind of fantastic. And one of these places where, at this particular one, they had DC archives, for Superman in Action Comics for $7. And these are like, $50-$60 books. And I'm sitting there going, hell yeah. I've got a ton of these already, but I'm missing certain volumes. If any of these are volumes I need, I'm buying them. I'm going to town here. And so, we've done a certain number of tricks with our web reports on these things to kind of stretch what could be done. One of the things that we did is we made it so that if you have a comic list and it is longer than a certain amount, because we did want to respect the the capabilities of your phone. Your phone actually doesn't have a lot of RAM to work with. It has a lot of storage, which is to say persistent. What is it called? SRAM. It's basically it's writable RAM that stays writ. But what they don't have is they don't have a lot of dynamic RAM. There was RAM you can use for memory, like just for computing things. And so one of the things we realized is that when we started to load up our own lists, is that if we wrote the whole thing, like if I took my 56,000 comic books and I put them in one big list, it would choke, most HTML renderers. And so what we thought, okay, we've got a brilliant idea. We're going to make it so that we fake as if it's one report. We'll put this, bar along the top with all the letters, number A, B, C, D, E, F, G, except that when if your report's very large, those hyperlinks there aren't indexes within the same file. They're indexes to separate report files that we group together on the back end. And we're actually loading up whole separate reports on the whole thing. So that way we can, give you the sense of it's all one big list, but really we extend your phone's memory and so forth. And that was all, again, patting ourselves on the back. We feel very clever, right? Until we hit S, right? So you guys might have heard, if you ever buy a comic book collection off somebody else and you need to sort it out, one of the first steps of that is you maybe make a big pile in your living room, and you start going through the comic books that you bought, and you make an A pile and a B pile and a C pile and a D pile and so forth, and you sort from there, right? If you ever do this, and I have done this, the S pile is going to be 3 times the size of every other pile in your living room when that comes to be, because S has things like Super and Saber and Star and you name it, it's in there. I mean, every freaking comic title on the planet starts with S, and they don't just have one. They if they got Superman, they get Supergirl, they get Superboy, they get Star Wars, it goes on and on and on and on. Not to mention Suspense and Secret, and just forget about it. It goes on forever. So in this particular case, I'm at Ollie's Discount Bargain Warehouse. I'm trying to figure out, do I have Superman in Action Comics number 8? And so I go, I've got my ComicBase right here. And I tap on, here's my thing, go to my comic list and go to S and scroll, and my phone crashes. And I'm sitting there going, crap. So we close it up, launch again, and same thing again. And I'm realizing, all those times I was kind of thinking to myself, buy a better phone. That just happened to me, and I bought a better phone, which means that this is something that just happens to everyone if you've got a big enough list in one pile, and in this case, the S pile. And that kind of bummed me out, because it was like one of those things where I thought we had this solved, and it really, we didn't. And so then I, spent a bunch of my vacation, sitting there and, kind of thinking on it, got my notebook and said, well, what do we got to do? And then I got a hold of, my IT type people and, who are wise in the ways of SQL servers. And one of the things we figured out for damn sure was, the only way we're going to solve this one is we can't do it with static reports anymore. We have to database your inventories when you send them to us. And we've got to make that something you can search. So you're not just looking up in a big list of static reports. What you've got, you have to be able to say that, well, my collection had Superman in Action Comics numbers, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 7, 8, etc. And I have to be able to then search Superman in Action Comics, integrate what we know exists for that title, merge that in with what we know that you have, and be able to see where the differences are and take it from there. And talk to the my IT guy advisors for SQL Server type things, and it's like, well, one thing's for damn sure is you're not going to be using the free version of SQL Server anymore, which we actually got away with for a long time, because there were all the limits for SQL Server were things that we never hit in terms of where it was. But if we suddenly had to database everyone's databases in addition to the comic stuff, that wasn't going to be the free version anymore. So okay, well, so it's a paid version, no big deal. So which version do we need? And his answer was, you need the one that costs about $12,000. It's like, oh. So so we sucked that one up, and then you might have noticed that 6-7 years ago we added the ability in Sidekick not only just to make reports for things, but when you save your backup to the web, that we also have the ability now to basically take it and crawl through it on our end and make up, any reports that you would like us to auto generate for you, but also to database your inventory into a special part hosted on our servers that you can search, so you can see, your inventory from the mobile app. And that part's again good as far as it goes. We were thinking, okay, again, problem solved, right? And we had to hire another team to write that version of the app, and we of course now are very busy writing all this databasey type stuff. And one thing about that is, and I've commented on this a couple times, but it is an important topic for me, is there's a whole question of data privacy and who owns your data. And the position we've always taken in ComicBase is you own your data. I mean, it's, we own the database of ComicBase. So in other words, we don't, it's taken us 32 years of making this thing. We really don't want you handing this out to every Joe on the block. But, the data you put in, it's very important that you be able to get to your own data. And so that's something that we've always respected from the word go. That's why there's been the ability to export from the word go and so forth. But another thing about it is your data is private to you. We don't know what you've got until you share it with us. And so there are things that we can do on our servers where if you feel like sharing it with us, if you want to save it to our server, then we can do things like make it possible to get to it from your mobile phone, right? Because, unless you put it someplace else, your data lives on your hard disk and only on your hard disk. It doesn't live anyplace else. But when you save it up to the cloud, the cloud is just a fancy way of saying somebody else's hard drives. When you do that, then we now have a number of great tricks that we can do. We can, update your inventories. We can, we can show you what you've got. We can, keep it safe in case, your home computer, crashes. We can get you mobile backups and so forth. And we've been building that up over time, and it's been pretty cool, and we've done some things. But that being said, I'll admit we have not been very aggressive about the mobile app. I mean, we've been really under aggressive about it, and we realized a couple of years ago that some of the stuff is just starting to break. The biggest warning, just to start with, was the on the iPhone Pro. We started getting reports in. Sorry, my iPhone Pro is. Yeah, I can't even get to it. It's buried behind other crap on my desk right now. But there's an extra camera that they rolled out on the iPhone Pro that. Sorry, I'm getting messaged here, and I better look at this. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can. Okay. Bug me after the live stream. Okay, cool. Guys, that's my staff. My staff is fun. Okay. Anyway, but we started realizing that that on the iPhone Pro, they had added an extra macro lens, and so an extra camera lens for taking really beautiful pictures of flowers and stuff like that. But the barcode library that we were using, which is basically the same, it's called zebra crossing, ZXing. You could get it, zebra stripes, barcodes kind of look like, anyway, that's the deal. Anyway, but that's it's kind of like a standard library that everyone was using for doing that sort of thing. That the switch in the camera, which iPhones would automatically switch to this other camera that zebra crossing didn't know to look for. It was making it so that it couldn't get the photo in focus until you pulled the camera far enough back away from the barcode for it to switch which camera it wanted to use to look at the barcode. And by then you were so far from the barcode that the image was too small to recognize. And so we've been looking for an answer to that one for honestly a couple of years now, and really not liking what we were finding in terms of what was going to be required. We figured out about a year ago that the only way we're going to be able to deal with this thing, number one, was we weren't going to be able to keep on third-partying the mobile development with the whole thing. I mean, there are too many things we wanted to do with the mobile app. There are too many things that are breaking, and the turnaround time when we're using third-party developers on this stuff was too extreme. And also, when you try to get a third-party developer to do something as heavy as like, hi, we need you to write a new image recognition library for barcode scanning. That's something that like 99% of the people you'd ever try to recruit to do app development from you just kind of go, you're kidding, right? Yeah, no, not my thing. There's probably a couple hundred people on the whole planet who know how to do that kind of work. And so you reach out to them and you say, well, what would it take to make that happen? And they're like, I'm really, really busy in my day job. I don't have time. We went round and around. We've been working on this now for about 9 months, where we basically we took two different decisions that we just knew had to happen. One is we knew we had to do we had to take responsibility for making the app ourselves. It had to be rewritten in a new language called Maui, which is the update of Xamarin. Now that, of course, Microsoft, having bought Xamarin from the people who originally did it, decided that they were going to do the normal Microsoft thing, and that is to kill it off and replace it with a technology that they liked a little bit better, which also is bigger, better, cooler, faster, stronger, etc., and does more stuff. That's all great. It's lovely. It just means it's another thing for us to learn. So terrific on that. But we figured, learn it we must, and so we did take on that decision. And so we, the mobile app is now a Maui app. It's, or at least the one that you'll be seeing very shortly, is a Maui app. And the other thing we had to do is we had to solve the damn barcode thing. We had to solve it on a couple different levels. One is we had to solve the focusing issue on the iPhone Pros. But the other problem we had, and I've gone on this one like 100 years, is that we really didn't like, we always sit there and say, like, guys, don't mistake, your mobile phone for a barcode scanner, because just the way the technology goes is the actual physical barcode scanner gun is like 1,000,000 times faster than the phone. I mean, the phone's pretty, can feel pretty slick when it's working really well. And the barcode library that we had, especially on the iPhone Pro, was not working very well. It was definitely waiting several times to get your hand to stop, jerking around and focus the whole thing up and then get the scan. That definitely had room for improvement. I mean, it's not, UPC scans are like the missing link of barcode scan technology. You guys have all, especially during COVID, pulled up a QR code on your phone, and it gets recognized in milliseconds. It's like you just kind of wave your phone in the general vicinity of a QR code, and it gets the code. Why the hell then do UPCs, why are they not the same level? I mean, there's simpler code, and a lot of the problem is that they are a simpler code with a lot less error and corrections and things like that moved in, but also because they came along before barcodes came along. They kind of got dropped in the shuffle in terms of barcode scanning libraries. So as we're sitting there over the last several months, and we're rewriting our mobile app to use more modern technology, solve all these other problems that have been bugging us. We fix the whole issue of being able to pull up the camera. We're sitting there going, well, can't we make the barcode better, right? And we tried literally every library on the market, like every single one. And we found that there are maybe two that work. And the problem with both of those is they have license fees you cannot believe. They literally scan. A bunch of them will get a UPC code. None of them would get a UPC code with the supplemental. That's the extra 2 or 5 digits that are at the far right. The only ones that claim to get the UPC with the supplemental, as it turns out, were ones that charge you per scan. And it was just, this is a free app. We wanted to keep it a free app. At the very least, we didn't want to be charging you extra fees just to use the mobile app. And we couldn't set ourselves up for a situation where, like, oh, yeah, here's the new version of the barcode app. We'll introduce it at Comic-Con. 200,000 people will try it out and do scanning on the whole thing, and I'll come back with a bill for several $1,000s, just for the weekend scanning. That's not a thing that the economic model supports unless we start charging for the library. And so we had to find another way to go. And so we crapped out. We spent about 6 months. We crapped out with our first developer as far as trying to write a new barcode scanning library. But about 3 days before we went to Comic-Con, our second developer, actually kind of our third, got it done. And are we still live? But yeah, so let me see if I can get to the proper one here. So this is my phone. This is the current app right here. And yes, and this is the new version of the phone app. We'll be seeing this in the stores fairly shortly. But yes, it does a number of excellent new tricks. For instance, like if I tap on the books or things like that, if I can do there, oops, if I got to make it so it's actually, oh, I'm sorry. Also helps if you're connected. Oh, I just disconnected. But anyway, when it's up there, when you tap on like the books, the things like that, you're seeing your list of books, you're seeing your list of magazines, your list of comics. You can now search, not just by the comics title, issues, and so forth. So you can, narrow in your selection very quickly on the whole thing. The infinite scrolling works again. The dark mode works again, and so forth. The display of the items works again. But now the barcode in there, and again, this is code that I got 3 days before I went to Comic-Con. You can now actually take the barcode, and basically the second you can get your camera to focus. So it's not quite as glorious as like a QR code where you sort of do a wave in the general vicinity of a thing, but the second you get your camera over the barcode and your camera stops shaking for like a quarter of a second, bam, it gets the barcode, and you're good to go on that whole front. Anyway, we got that done. The Mac version on that one is, the iOS version on that one is shortly behind it. We expect that one to be in the stores in the next few weeks, and that is coming very shortly on this whole thing. Finally got this damn thing under control, and yes, we're now running the show on this one. So when there are features we want to add, or if there are things we want to do, it's now all under our control, and we can just deal with it because we've had to suck that one up. But yeah, that's one we got wrong in the grand scheme of things. Is we hadn't realized how central to everyone's life the mobile experience had been. It's one of those things where, again, getting it right, or at least mostly right to start with, kind of handicaps you in a way when the world changes on you and you don't realize things like the entire momentum of the world has now swapped, so that when people would call us up and they say like, yeah, I'm using the app, and I'm thinking, you said app, do you mean the phone app? Do you mean like the ComicBase on the desktop? And the one thing that it was very hard for me to get through my thick head on this one is that people kind of, by and large, when they're doing stuff, they're thinking in terms of, no, I'm just, when I start and end thinking about most of the problems in my life, I start by going to the App Store and I just type in comics or whatever else, and I grab what's there. And for a lot of people, the desktop is kind of it's a thing that happens later, if at all. Whereas I come from the world where the desktop or your laptop or things like that are absolutely key to your life. So there's one other kind of cool trick that this one will do. And this is this brand new version of ComicBase, and I guess we're not going to call it ComicBase Mobile anymore. I mean, we just call it ComicBase. Don't know, but is you actually will be able to just download this from the App Store, even if you've got the free version of ComicBase on your desktop, or even if you don't have ComicBase at all on your desktop. And if you don't have it, it'll ask you to log in when you first start, and then after that, I'll say like, oh, hey, I see you don't have a database going. You want to start one up? Boom, great, go. And then we always used to have this round trip between your desktop of ComicBase and the mobile phone. What's different in this world, and this is ComicBase Metropolis, right? Is the code name of the next version. We always have code names for our new things. So in Metropolis, which will probably be called ComicBase 2026, it's probably not a big mystery there. This is now a first-class citizen of the world. In other words, this isn't just ancillary to what you're doing on your desktop. As a matter of fact, if you want to, you could just use this one. And like if I add a comic book to it, if I beep in a new comic book, that total I've got at the top increments in real time. I don't need to wait till I synced it up with Sidekick, as I go. If I deduct a comic book or I regrade it, that number changes in real time. When I'm looking at the books, as I said before, I'm looking at my books. I'm looking at them here. So you can use it without even having the desktop. And now if you do later on decide, okay, I now want to download the desktop version, it'll say, oh, hey, I see there's a database you started from your phone. Did you want to use that one? In which case it'll sync all your inventory instantly. And now you're managing it kind of like the way you're used to doing it right now, where the desktop is probably like the authoritative source of where you're going. You can always blow away your mobile inventory from what's on your desktop, but you can also use this entirely independently, which is to say you don't even need the desktop at all to run this thing. So if people had asked the question of when's the Mac version coming, it does kind of beg the question of, do you even need the Mac? Because now we can do most things, and probably where this wants to go. We're going to start with a pretty, basic, collection management on this thing. You don't want to make, especially the phone, you don't want to make that one too bulked out because it doesn't work particularly well. But when you start talking about larger form factors, your iPads, your so forth, things like that, because we've now moved where the center of gravity is about where your data lives, and the answer is it lives wherever. But because it's no longer just locked onto your machine, it lives wherever you are. But because that center of gravity has moved, and because we've abstracted out how we access it and how we talk to it, the world's quite different now about what we can do with it. And so we're going to get this release out, and then we're going to do some thinking. Because I think there's some things that all this implies about where the product probably might want to go in the future. And I need to think before I go there, because I gotta admit, I'm an old school guy. I really, really, really like the idea that my data is mine, and it's only as public as I feel like making it for my own needs out on the web. If we get to the point, one thing about this is if your data is only here, right? It's not really on your phone, and this is important to mention. You're accessing it from your phone, but it's on our servers, right? And that's fine for everyone who's got a current ComicBase subscription. We're used to how that goes, right? The core data is on your desktop. You update it to the cloud, and then you can view it anywhere, right? But if it starts out and maybe even ends where it was only ever here, there's some different implications to that in terms of how the data gets stored, how you charge for it, and so forth. And right now we're not going to change much, which is to say, the price for all this stuff, right? Everything we're adding new, it's going to be the same. So Archive Edition, 1.1 million covers, thousands add more every week, 1.3 million comic books, millions of additional, books, magazines, newspapers, all that stuff. Same price as it was before. It's the 4K Archive Edition, make it, a little bit more eye candy in the whole thing. Same price as it was before. We added in all those hundreds of thousands of new pictures and everything to the Professional Plus and the Express Plus editions. And by the way, we've had a cycle to go with it. The Express and the Pro guys also are going to get downloading. So you don't need to be an Archive Edition user to be able to download pictures as new things come out every week. If you're able to download as part of your set to start with, so in other words, if if it's a Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, or Image one, and you're able to download it with the Express version, I think Titan and a bunch of others, then you can download new covers from those guys as things go, as you move on. Now, granted, they're the thumbnails; they're not like the big ones, but they're the big enough ones. If you still want encyclopedic coverage of the world of comic books, the Archive is still going to be your go-to. But you can keep up, if you're a Marvel guy and you want to collect on those things, that's really all you care about, or DC, your Dark Horse, you're a mainstream guy, that Express, that Pro, whatever else you're using, that may be all you ever want, and will keep you up to date for the life of your subscription as long as you're doing those things. Plus, everyone down to the demo program, everyone, mobile becomes a core feature for everybody. So it used to be limited to the Pro and above. No, the ability to have your data and take it with you on your mobile device and view it on your mobile device and add to it and change it and everything else on your mobile device, that's going to go all the way down to the demo version of ComicBase. Now, the demo version of ComicBase still limited to 500 comic books. So as soon as you enter that, your 499 comic books, as soon as you enter that 500th one, we're going to have our hand out and say, look, it is time to pay the piper if you want to keep using things. But you'll still be able to carry that over, with any of the paid versions of ComicBase. It'll pick up what you got going and so forth. But as long as you've got under 500 comic books, it's we figure that's something we will handle ourselves. And we are having a little bit of a thought on some of the breakdowns. No price increases for the Express and the Pro and the Archive and so forth. We don't know if the new version of the mobile app is still going to be called ComicBase Mobile because it's integral to everything now. There's definitely a thought that maybe it's just called ComicBase. And it syncs in and it has the capabilities of whatever version of the desktop that you've got. But what if you've got the demo version, right? What if you've got the version where you just want to try it out and you pull it down from the App Store? And we were thinking, good God, it's like we've added a hell of a lot of capability to this thing. I mean, this is insane. It started out, it was like, it's like having the Overstreet price guide in your hand, and we've made it so it does all this other stuff. I mean, it's like you can manage, collections, several long boxes worth in this whole thing. So what a lot of people are getting like, $6, $12 a month. What are we going to charge, for everything that we're doing there? And I think we thought around, and we still like free. So yeah, basically it probably won't be called, I don't know if we still call it ComicBase free, certainly on the mobile app, probably just called ComicBase. But yeah, until you have 500 comic books entered into it, yeah, it's on us. So that's kind of where we're going with all this stuff. So that's most of the big announcements. And Department of Commerce says, are you going to merge the archive and 4K archive into one? No, I mean they're just, one's just a little bit of a top up over the other one. You might notice they're pretty similar in price. It's kind of like if you've got Netflix and you want to get the 4K images on Netflix, it's a couple extra bucks a month. Same kind of deal with us in ComicBase, where if you've got a nice pretty monitor and you like really having your maximum eye candy on the whole thing, we pay for that by charging a couple extra bucks a month. But yeah, we're not looking to flatten that one any further than that. And let's see. So let me see other questions here. Some other reports from people on the whole thing. Using the iPhone on the ComicBase app. I think we covered that one. It is top of the app hour, and it's PSA time. So yes, please, if this is the sort of thing you'd like, do not forget to hit the like and subscribe. And if you're watching post live stream, please leave comments. And don't forget about the ComicBase message boards we have there at forums.comicbase.com. Lots of great stuff in there. You can post your own topics, including topics for the live stream, and also get links to the ComicBase cover catalog on the whole thing. Anyway, lots of big stuff going on. It's going to be a couple days, kind of get my feet back under me, and we've got a little ways to go on the beta program for Metropolis before we're in full release on the whole thing. So you might notice that when we did our Comic-Con sale, we were saying that will be, when you buy ComicBase, it is going to include the new ComicBase 2026 shipping later this summer. So it is later this summer is when this will all come out, and that should also be syncing up with when we will also be able to have the mobile app out in the app stores, the brand new ComicBase mobile app. So good stuff. I think you're all going to dig it. It's a new world. It's a very exciting world, and so that's pretty much it, guys. And so anyway, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.